Welcome to Trench Diaries. This is Iron Coffins Part 28. U-230 proceeded towards the Chesapeake Bay at the most economical cruising speed. On average, we covered about 160 miles per day, depending on the intensity of disturbances coming from the air. However, the stream of short signals, death reports from our boats never ceased. U-509 reported that it had been attacked by an aircraft and was heavily damaged. It urgently requested spare parts, which became the last message. Around this time, U-513, commanded by Guggenberger, U-67, commanded by Müller-Stockheim, U-160, commanded by Pommer-Esche, U-159, and U-622, all old campaigners of the U-boat war, also sank. However, our radio operators decrypted not only distress signals, they intercepted the Wehrmacht reports daily and duplicated them on our typewriter. This way, we learned about the sensational Allied landings in Sicily and the ongoing setbacks of our troops on the Russian front. The world was ablaze, and the flames surged highest where it was least expected, in Germany. Our Luftwaffe, neglected by Göring and decimated by the Allies, couldn't stop the Anglo-American bomber fleets that laid our cities to rubble and ash. I recognized with great concern that the setbacks of our U-boat force had an alarming resemblance to the defeat of the Luftwaffe. But despite the fires and the carpet bombings at home, despite the retreats and defeats on the land fronts and the imminent danger we faced, we kept our hopes high. However, our U-boat losses continued to rise. On July the 20th, a short signal confirmed that the logbook of one of our comrades from better days in Brest was closed forever. It said, "Attacked by aircraft, boat sinking, going into captivity, U-558. That was the last message from this boat. The next day, we spotted a Catalina, a twin-engine flying boat. We immediately submerged, stayed underwater for 2 hours, and forced the pilot of the American plane to abandon his pursuit. When we surfaced in the late afternoon, the sky was covered with heavy clouds. We recognized the advantage of the storm front and surged into the evening with utmost force. Night fell over the Atlantic but soon turned into bright day. Lightning bolts pierced the night blue sky, illuminating it in bright flashes. Thunder cracked, popped, and rolled like a gigantic artillery barrage. After 5 hours, the rain came. As the vivid beams cut through the clouds and thunder echoed in the sky, the streams from above smoothed the ocean's surface. When the tropical storm finally passed, a new day dawned on the horizon. The day we finally reached the continental shelf of North America. In anticipation of heavy American air surveillance, we submerged at 9:45 and positioned U-230 on a new course at a depth of about 110 meters. During the extended underwater journey, I sat with the captain, Riedel, and Friedrich in the officers' mess. We planned the tactics of our approach. The crew rested in complete silence. Towards the evening, the men were briefed on the destination of our journey. After nightfall, we surfaced. It was 21:15 hours. The sea breathed softly. The deep blue evening sky was cloudless. The horizon was sharp and black. Prager came to the bridge to take some star sightings. As he adjusted his sextant, I said, "Just make sure you get a good fix. It would be a damn uncomfortable if we found ourselves in the locks of the Panama Canal." "What if I told you, XO, that I navigated us into Lake Ontario?" replied Prager, and as the watch burst into laughter, he added, "Don't laugh so cheekily, you orphan boys. We're on the right course, of course." At 0140, we spotted a shadow to starboard. We recognized the fast-moving freighter. Its captain truly had a guardian angel on the bridge. To carry out our mine-laying mission successfully, the first commandment was to remain undetected and not sink any ships. So, the rest of the night was uneventful except for a false alarm when Venus rose in full glory. The air and the sea remained free of hostilities. Neither an aircraft nor a vessel from the American Coast Guard halted our clandestine approach to the coast. U-230 proceeded undetected at 18 knots westward, with Cape Charles directly ahead. On that decisive night, we received an exciting piece of news. Over our shortwave receiver, we heard that a coup had taken place in Italy, and Mussolini was arrested, and Marshal Badoglio had replaced him as head of state. If this information hadn't been broadcast by a German radio station, we might have dismissed it as Allied propaganda lies. Nevertheless, It seemed highly improbable to us, and we attributed no special significance to it. As the sun rose, we dove to 40 meters, slowly advanced westward, and came within 30 miles of Cape Charles. Since we had no information about the American coastal defenses, we went to battle stations and prepared our aft tube for firing. Just after noon, the listener reported increasing propeller noises. Friedrich brought the boat to periscope depth, and to Siegmund's surprise, we found ourselves directly in front of a small convoy, much closer than our sonar had indicated. 4 destroyers guarded only 7 freighters. Suddenly, the commander called out, "Boat is coming out, Chief! Bring the boat down! The bridge is breaking through, Chief! Down, 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 down!" Friedrich attempted all possible emergency measures, but to no avail. "What the hell is wrong with this tub? Chief, down into the cellar, now!" thundered Siegmund. Valuable seconds passed. U-230 hung like a fish on a hook just below the surface, offering the top of the tower to the enemy. Then it slowly, incredibly slowly, drilled through a dense layer of water. Just as the stern penetrated the specifically heavier water, a series of depth charges detonated in close proximity. The explosions pushed the boat downward. Its screws churned at maximum revolutions, propelling and forcing the boat into the depths until it touched bottom, then the tube awkwardly settled on its side. Aztec pulses emitted by the American destroyers zipped through the shallow water, but they did not hit the pressure hull with the usual strength. The sound waves were either absorbed or deflected by the various water layers. The hunters searched the sea for nearly 2 hours, in vain. Then, without wasting another depth charge on us, they sailed off in the direction of the small convoy. At nightfall, we surfaced. U-230 quickly headed west. The night was moonless and almost windless. 3 hours passed in increasing excitement. Then, a faint glow rose above the horizon, the lights of Norfolk. Minutes later, Borchardt shouted, "America, dead ahead!" We had reached our destination. The time was 23:25. The date, July the 27th, 1943. As the thin line of the coast became visible above water, Prager's voice came from the darkness of the control room. "Boat is 4 miles east of Cape Charles. Suggest course change to 235 degrees. "Very well, Prager," confirmed Siegmund. Then he turned to me and ordered, "Prepare the X for launch, XO." "Jawohl, Herr Oberleutnant," I replied. "Hard or soft-boiled?" I ordered to flood the 4 forward tubes and open the outer doors. U-230 raced into the bay at high speed, passing Fisherman's Island to starboard. Our sonar intermittently sounded the depths. Prager continually took bearings on landmarks, and our presence went unnoticed. Our advance remained a secret. When we stood halfway between Cape Charles in the north and Cape Henry in the south, Siegmund turned the bow of his boat into the shallow waters of Chesapeake Bay. Everything remained calm. Nowhere was an enemy vessel to stop our penetration. We reduced speed and proceeded slowly. The lights of Norfolk became increasingly clear. The American sailors must have all been ashore. They were certainly not at sea. We left the naval base to port, and the silhouette of the city sharply stood out against the night sky, and land rose around us as we cautiously penetrated deeper into the bay. 2 hours after midnight, we spotted some freighters heading towards us, heading out into the open sea. Their sudden appearance thwarted our plan to drop the mines that night, and the shallow water did not allow us to dive and remain unseen. We had only one option: retreat into the darkness back into the Atlantic. For a long minute, we showed our broadside to the vessels until U-230 had completed its full turn. Then we roared out of the bay in front of the freighters. Later, we saw one of these shadows turn to the north and 3 vehicles turned to the south. Soon, they had disappeared into the night. We traveled 30 miles to the east, submerged, and grounded the boat to wait for the new evening. July the 28th, 9:45 p.m. When the last rays of the sun had sunk behind the horizon, we surfaced again. Once again, we steamed at full speed into Chesapeake Bay. The night was pitch black but clear. We passed the line from Cape Charles to Cape Henry, and this time too, the American Navy was on land. The bay lay completely deserted before us. Only shortly before midnight did Borchardt spot a shadow directly ahead. We slowed our pace, and the shadow quickly grew into a giant ship. Siegmund stopped both engines to avoid a collision. The vehicle was heading towards Baltimore. It made 8 knots. Much too slow for our limited schedule, but since we couldn't order the captain to speed up, we matched our speed to his and followed in his wake. We had plenty of time to lay our night glasses on the bridge rail and observe the American landscape. July the 29th, 10 am. Siegmann believed he had penetrated far enough into the bay. He turned the boat on a reciprocal course towards the lights of Norfolk. When U-230 was securely on its new course, I disappeared into the dimmed boat to monitor the mine launch. After 5 minutes, the first mine fell out of the tube with a soft thud. 3 minutes later, the second followed, then the third. And the first tube was empty. While the mines were ejected at regular intervals, the men reloaded the empty tubes. The bow compartment steamed from the sweat of half-naked bodies and resonated with the clattering of chains and trolleys. The ejection of the deadly load was precision work and took 1 hour and 50 minutes. Afterwards, I hurried to the bridge. "Oberleutnant, I am reporting. We have laid 24 eggs into Uncle Sam's front yard." Siegmann grinned. "We are not having Easter for another 9 months, XO, and we can't wait here for the egg rolling to begin. So, both engines ahead full. New course, 90 degrees." The boat quickly gained speed, running at 17 knots, past Norfolk, then Fisherman's Island, and headed towards a new morning sky. Around 6 am we submerged and drifted slowly into the open sea. At 10:30 p.m. the same evening, we surfaced again. It was again moonless, with only a gentle breeze rippling the sea. Siegmann turned to a southward course and pushed the engines to full throttle to leave the location of our recent activities as quickly as possible. The following day, we were back in our old routine, surfacing 3 or 4 times a day directly in front of enemy aircraft. Since our METOX radar warning receiver proved to be extremely unreliable in detecting enemy aircraft in a timely manner, we simply relied on our eyes. On July the 30th, we intercepted 3 short signals that had been sent in quick succession. They were the last messages from 3 boats. All indicated the same location in the Bay of Biscay. Riedel, visibly shaken, handed me the decrypted signals. They read: "Attacked by aircraft, bombs, boat sinking, 46 north, 10 west, U-504. Bombs, boat sinking, 46 north, 10 west, U-461. Aircraft, bombs, boat sinking, 46 north, 10 west, U-462. We were dismayed to realize that the boats had run in the same formation that our leadership had ingeniously devised and that we had quickly abandoned in practice. And these 3 boats were, as we knew, unwieldy U-tankers and much more vulnerable than the combat boats. Therefore, we could form a clear picture of the last minutes of their battle. Incapable of reacting within seconds and diving quickly or supporting each other with the completely insufficient onboard anti-aircraft cannons, they had already lost the battle before they had had a chance to hoist a flag, as the Phoenicians had done 3,000 years ago. With the loss of these 3 boats, our prospects of being supplied at sea diminished significantly. However, the British victory in the Bay of Biscay was overshadowed by another one, ashore. For the 3rd time in a short period, we heard over our shortwave receiver that Hamburg had been heavily bombed again. As it was reported, the heaviest of all attacks had occurred the previous night. Apparently, half the city was said to be engulfed in flames. I saw the commander's face pale. He silently retreated to his nook, closed the green curtain, and did not touch either lunch or dinner. We all knew that his family lived in Hamburg, his wife, children, and parents. August the 1st. We had put about 400 nautical miles between us and the Chesapeake Bay and now risked sending a radio message to High Command. It said, "Special mission successfully accomplished. Request new orders, low fuel supply, location 27 north, 68 west, U-230. 3 hours after sending our report, 2 4-engine planes dove at us from the slightly cloudy sky. We immediately submerged. Depth charges exploded in close proximity. On that day, we dove 4 more times. It was now entirely clear to us that our radio message had triggered an extensive hunt by American aircraft. After nightfall, we received the order to continue our course to the south to the area east of the Windward Islands. There, U-459, one of our milk cows, was supposed to supply us. 2 hours after receiving this radio message, Riedel deciphered a personal message for the captain. It said, U-230, Siegmann family healthy and well in the countryside. Signed, Dönitz. This message was more important to all of us than any decoration could have been. We continued our march to the south with the utmost caution. Alarm diving became routine again, and the same applied to avoiding bombs. On August the 3rd, we received a radio message from High Command which caused the greatest surprise on board since the beginning of the Allied counter-offensive. It said, "Attention all boats. Immediately turn off METOX, strong self-radiation that can be targeted by the enemy. Shortwave transmitters and receivers also turn off until further notice. New messages will follow." This warning reached U-230 just in time, but for the many hundred boats that were already on the bottom of the seven seas, it came way too late. For months, we had used a device that, like a lighthouse, had revealed our position to the enemy. This realization made our survival seem like a miracle. We turned off our METOX with some clear expression of relief and continued the journey to the south with increased caution. However, our hope of ever returning to Brest diminished day by day because our U-tanker no longer responded to the repeated demands of the leadership to report its location. In these days, our fuel oil transfer was postponed 3 times. Each time, we waited in vain at a newly assigned rendezvous point for the U-tanker. Each time, with less fuel in the bunkers. Eventually, we drifted almost helplessly somewhere in the vastness of the Atlantic. Our situation worsened daily and became serious as our fuel supply dwindled even more. Once again, the situation seems hopeless for the boat, and once again they conducted a highly dangerous mission and yet came out alive. It is incredible how lucky the author was and that we get to listen to his story. Now, when it comes to Chesapeake Bay, U-230 wasn't the only boat to carry out mine-laying operations there. In fact, U-701 did so in June 1942, about a year earlier, laid some mines which actually sunk 2 ships and damaged a 3rd. U-230, however, was unlucky in that no mine hits are recorded in the period where U-230 was around the harbor or after. Also, we finally learned about the infamous METOX message where a British prisoner of war, just to confuse his German captors, claimed during interrogation that the METOX antenna itself was radiating trackable emissions, when, in fact, the newest British radar just did not get picked up by the warning receiver. A great ruse indeed, as German High Command actually believed it. Anyway, we will see how the boat gets back to France in the next episode, and I will see you then. Cheers, bye bye.